Donald Trump is finally getting the karma he deserves. You take a look right now at the electoral map in Texas. Donald Trump's approval, net negative 17.2%. You look at his approval in Michigan, net negative 15.8%. You take a look at his approval in Florida, net negative 7.5%. Look at the early voting data right now in Texas with the primaries there. Democrats have a nearly 50,000 vote advantage in votes cast in the Democratic primary than the Republican primary. We are seeing presidential level Democrat turnout in 2026. Jack Posobiec, a MAGA influencer, is terrified and sees the blue wave building. I mean, you take a look at North Carolina right there in the Senate seat. You've got former Democratic Governor Cooper, 50% beating MAGA Republican candidate Whatley, 50 to 40% right there. By the way, you just look at polls like this, the latest YouGov poll. Who do you think did a better job as the president? Former President Obama or Donald Trump? Obama up 55 to 37%. You take a look at the Real Clear Politics average of Donald Trump's approval from all polls. It's at its lowest ever. When you aggregate all of the polls, including the far right extremist polls, you're still talking about Trump's approval only at 42%. His disapproval is at 55.5%. Quite literally the most detested, loathed, hated president at this point in the presidency of anybody at this time. By the way, don't even take my word for it. Let's listen to what some right-wing podcasters are saying about it. You have this libertarian Dave Smith, who was a Trumper in 2024. He did this whole YouTube video, I'm voting for Trump. Well, here's what he's now saying about Donald Trump on his latest show. Play this clip.
Donald Trump's approval ratings have been crashing, and it's largely a reflection of his failure as president. I mean, I just think that's kind of obvious.
Or how about Joe Rogan? Here's what he's saying.
It's overwhelming me. Like sometimes at nighttime, like I can't wind down.
Yeah.
It's just like there's too much news. It's too much fucking madness. We're about to go to war with Iran.
I know.
Like everyone's eating beef jerky and pizza. Like what are these what the fuck is pizza?
I know.
How far does this go? How come this never got released before? Like what is happening?
Folks, here's what Benny frickin' Johnson. You don't get more MAGA sycophant, MAGA delulu, MAGA weirdo than freaking Benny Johnson. Here's what Benny Johnson said on the Sean Spicer show in the past 48 hours. Here, play this clip.
Everyone's attacking Trump over this. I think some of that attacks is like totally justified. I will never defend like the way that the files release was handled. I think it's been, I think everyone agrees that it has to be handled better, should have been handled better. This should have been the transparency moment, and it wasn't. And it was unnecessary political damage that was done.
And then we heard from Tim Dillon, right-wing podcaster. He goes, we're not doing great. Our country is doing bad. Here, play this clip.
The country's not doing great. I know that in some areas it feels like it's doing great, but it's not doing great. Like we're in $40 trillion worth of debt. That's number one, a big problem. We're on the verge of potentially a major war with Iran. That's not good.
And here's what he had to say about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. So Patel did Bongino's podcast. Patel's literally he's the number one at the FBI. He was a right-wing podcaster before being the number one at the FBI. Bongino was a right-wing podcaster, then the deputy FBI director, and now he's back to being a podcaster. And so you had Patel go on Bongino's show, and they were both whining about how hard it was for them to help Donald Trump cover up the Epstein files. They literally did a show talking about how hard it was to work with Donald Trump on level 11 decisions of cover up. Here, play this clip.
Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have decided to have a podcast. They're doing a podcast because Dan Bongino left the FBI and is now doing a podcast again. And Kash Patel is back on his podcast. And here we go. Let's just let it speak for itself. I don't know if you can even set this up. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, friends of the show, here describing how difficult it is to cover up a pedophile ring. Let's go.
everything's a level 10 decision, Cash. A level 10 meaning there's a pardon the language, but a shitty decision and a shittier one. Because if there was a good decision to be made, someone else made it. And then when those decisions, that's every day. I know you know this because I would knock on your door and you'd be like, what now? And I'd be like, here we go again. Like something else will come up. But I just want to put into perspective for folks out there, when that decision can't even be made by me, it goes to you. When it doesn't go to you, it goes like to the president's desk. He's dealing with like level 11 decisions. And that's the thing in DC is that's why the batting average isn't always going to be 1,000. There's no good call to be made or someone else would have made it. There's just really tough decisions where, there's a shit call and a shittier call. And listen, that's what we signed up for. That's how it rolls.
Look, yeah, these are difficult decisions, Dan. That's why you volunteered to jump back in. It wasn't just going to be, hey, we're going to do this job. It's going to be super easy. We're not going to have to make any hard decisions, and we're not going to have to combat a press corps that has largely been biased and full of inaccurate reporting. But we made those decisions collectively in the best interest of the nation. And if we hadn't, then none of this would be true. None of this would be possible. If President Trump had made the hard decisions to allow us and give us the resources that we need and to back the blue and law enforcement and to prioritize working with state and local authorities, then we wouldn't be able to do what we did. But you're right. We had a lot of hard decisions, and that comes with the territory of the job. But once you look outside of the cauldron of Washington, D.C., and this is one of the things that, I'm trying to remind myself of every day. Outside of here, there is a different America than the one that lives in the national capital region. And I try to remind myself every day when making those difficult decisions that you talked about that we make on a daily basis.
Stop it for a minute. What the fuck are these people talking about?
Now, one of the areas Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are panicking about where Democrats are poised to flip some seats is Michigan. You zoom in into Macomb and Oakland County there, where you have these MAGA Republican Congress members, most recently representing the 10th Congressional District, John James, MAGA Republican Congress member. He's actually running for governor, so the 10th Congressional District's an open seat. Lisa McClain got moved one district over, but she was representing the 10th Congressional District. I mean, she's a MAGA extremist. John James is someone who basically blessed Donald Trump's entire extremist and radical policy that's crushing the people of Michigan. So I want to bring in right now Christina Hines, who's running for that seat in the 10th Congressional District. It's an open seat now because the MAGA Congress members running for governor. Just a brief background on Christina. She was a sexual assault and child abuse prosecutor for 10 years. You were born in Macomb. You know the area very well. So let's just get into it right away. What I always found interesting about Macomb, about Oakland, and then seeing who represents those congressional districts is, the views and values and principles that I know about those areas, having traveled there, having worked there in connection with legal cases that I was on, and just knowing the people there. It always shocked me that you had these MAGA extremist Congress members representing these districts. And I always thought maybe Democrats are not talking to the working class people there, but you're poised to potentially flip this seat. The primaries in the Democratic race are not until August, but your race has a lot of momentum. So tell us first about your view that you can flip the seat. Then I want to talk about your background as well as a prosecutor of sex assault and child abuse, because obviously with the Epstein files, these MAGA extremists have been working for the Epstein class and trying to cover it all up.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think that you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to Macomb County, we are a lot of, working families, and we are a community of folks that, really just want to provide a better life for our kids and for the next generation. And for a long time, I think that the Democrats that were running here kind of forgot about who they were representing. And it gave Donald Trump an opportunity to come in and his kind of MAGA following, the people that are totally loyal to him, to come in and sweep in and talk about things about how they were going to represent working families when they really never have. I mean, John James has not brought anything back to this district to help the working families here. And so I think that as a mom of 3 little kids and, someone that actually has to go to the grocery store and, run a household and Both my husband and I are working parents. This is our community, and we really want to fight for other working families here and bring good jobs back here, make sure that people actually have access to healthcare. So I think that message is very much resonating with people right now in this district.
Michigan, the 10th congressional district, frankly, all the congressional districts have really come under attack by the Trump regime, whether it's 2 weeks ago, just in Michigan in general, Trump attacking the Gordie Howe Bridge, which brought economic, even though it's not technically in the 10th, it brought economic benefits to people in the 10th and throughout Michigan. Donald Trump's tariffs against the world, which were struck down on Friday, raising input costs, raising consumer costs, while Donald Trump said that it's the greatest thing ever. And now he's saying that after the Supreme Court ruling, he's going to come up with ways to make the tariffs even higher. And people are like, dude, what are you talking about? Ripping away people's health care in Michigan. It seems that the MAGA Republican Congress members have been working with Trump, have just been outright hostile and antagonistic, and have almost taken joy in causing pain to the great state of Michigan and to the congressional district that you're running for.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, even if you're looking at the Gordie Howe Bridge and our thoughts on that, I mean, what Trump did and said was absolutely absurd. I mean, these trade policies that he has come up with are impacting all of us. And as the wife and sister of auto workers, I'm seeing it firsthand. American and Canadian workers spent years building this Gordie Howe Bridge, and it's going to strengthen manufacturing and trade and supply chains on both sides of the border. Shutting it down would do nothing but hurt Michigan workers and small businesses, and it would damage our relationship with one of our closest allies. So, it's really just going to hurt working families here. And I think that the people across Southeast Michigan want these political games to just stop, and they want people in government to start focusing on how they can help, make life easier for just working families in our community.
I want to lean into your background as a prosecutor of sexual assault and child abuse. You were a prosecutor for 10 years in prosecuting some of these most heinous and despicable of cases, bringing people to justice. I think there are so many people out here who see what's in these Epstein files that have been released so far. They also know that 50 terabytes or so of documents is still being withheld. Everybody's now seen Pam Bondi's hearing before the House Judiciary Committee, where she refused to even look at the survivors. They're hearing Donald Trump saying, I've been vindicated, when everybody who reads those files go, what the hell are you talking about? And it just looks like I don't even know how I have to say these words, but like a pedo protection racket in the Oval Office, and people are like horrified. And Trump's out there saying, I've been vindicated. How great am I? What did he say the other day? I feel bad for former Prince Andrew and the royal family. That's who I feel bad for. People are like, what? This is a big deal. But I know you must have your own perspective as well as a prosecutor of these types of crimes.
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, first of all, I think this is one of the reasons and a perfect example of why people don't trust government. The Epstein class cover up for each other all of the time. And the rest of us are just still struggling to get by day to day. So, like you said, I was a sexual assault and child abuse prosecutor for 10 years. I handled human trafficking cases all over Southeast Michigan. And I believe that survivors deserve justice, no matter who the accused person is. Accountability in and of itself can't depend on whether someone is powerful or wealthy or politically connected. It shouldn't depend on whether someone's a Republican or a Democrat. Whoever has committed crimes or enabled abuse, I think Congress, the members of Congress, especially right now, have an obligation to conduct a serious investigation and real oversight. And frankly, if the investigation shows that any of these powerful leaders helped Epstein sexually abuse children or traffic women, then they should be buried under the prison with him. And the survivors in our country deserve accountability, and every American deserves the truth.
You see someone like a Howard Lutnick just so brazenly lie to the American people and say, I only met him once. I was so disgusted by him. He was such a disgusting human that I would never see him ever again. Then you read the files and it's like, dude, you brought your children there after you said you were, by your own admission, you said you were on notice of what he was doing. And you brought your children there. And then Trump is asked about it. And then Trump goes, as far as I know, he only brought his children there. And everyone is saying, why would you bring your children to the island where children are getting sex trafficked when you know the guy? And there's so many moments like that. And I feel like as we look at Oakland and Macomb and counties like that, what the Epstein file release, I think, has done, and this is a breakthrough, is finally let people recognize, oh, these political framings of issues were a fallacy, and it was a way to divide us. And what's really happening here is good versus evil, and evil wants to divide us with these framings. And I just think that's why your message could resonate and is resonating in Oakland and Macomb, because people don't want this craziness. They want normal lives. These are hardworking, working class people who look at this, and I think they're embarrassed by what they're seeing in the government, not on a political or partisan basis, at just like a humanity level, right?
I think you're so right. And I want to remind people, 1 in 4 women have been survivors of sexual assault or abuse. And this is so common. I have knocked thousands of doors in this community. And I cannot tell you how many times I have knocked on a door. And when I start the stump speech and I say I was a sexual assault and child abuse prosecutor, I've had people start crying on the doors with me because they have experienced that, or their sister or their girlfriend or whoever it is has experienced that. This is a real part of our community. And I think that's why it's so relatable for people and so hard to see this massive cover up and this corruption in our government. And so I think that when we are out there and we're talking to people, we're listening to what their top issues are, I know that this seat can flip because I am having this conversation, and flipping the seat is key to flipping the US House. And so that background that I have and that ability to listen to survivors, to communicate with people about this issue, about working class issues, about working family issues, I think is key to being able to flip it. And I'm just excited to, be able to serve my community and serve this country like that.
Where can people learn more about the campaign and anything else you want to say to our 6 million subscribers?
Yeah. ChristinaHinesForCongress.com. And I am a mom of 3 little ones. I've been a sexual assault and child abuse prosecutor, grew up here, still living here, and we do need help if we want to flip this seat. So come to the website, donate if you can, and fly out to Macomb County and knock some doors with us, because we need to do everything that we can to flip this seat. And it's going to take all of us getting off the bench to make sure that we're letting our children come up in a democracy with the same rights and freedoms and opportunities that we had growing up. So it's going to take all of us. And I appreciate your time today.
Well, a joy of my job is interviewing good people who want to help other people. And that's why you're running. And it's great to have you here. Christina Hines, we appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.